Welcome back to Dolor Factor Live. You have until 9:30 tonight to send in your answers. Here's a quick reminder of the giveaways. To win some Farron's ice cream, name 2 of the ice creams mentioned tonight and which company produces the ice cream. To win 2 months of dance class from Expose St. Lucia Latin Dance Studio, name the Rodney-based studio where Expose St. Lucia holds its classes. And you could be dancing with the stars. If you'd like a token of appreciation from DFL, name 3 DFL sponsors. One of them must be a car rental company. We're talking about myths and superstition, and we spoke about the definitions, and now I'd like to talk about perhaps the history, where it all began. Did it begin in the Caribbean? Did it begin in Spain? Did it begin in Africa? And Nkrumah, I think you're the best person I can ask that question tonight.
Okay. In terms of myths, we need not necessarily even limit it to St. Lucia, because as I said, every religion has its myths. Most people would know, hopefully by now, that the human race began in Africa. And many of our cultural forms, etc., would have begun there as well. So with myths as well, the same thing happened, that over time people use certain things to symbolize various experiences they had, various truths that they understood. And these things went on. Some of them went on to form some of the religions that we know, including Christianity, Hinduism, etc. Some of them continued in Africa in other forms such as Ifa or Vodou. Now, in our St. Lucian context, you have these different traditions meeting up. Of course, the Christian faith had the political power, that way they could have stamped out or suppressed other traditions. So you would find that these did not survive in their full form. In Haiti, because they were able to have the revolution and take over the island, they were able to keep that better. But we were not able to keep the full forms of our religious traditions, and therefore what we have left are fragments of it. So they are not, we cannot understand them fully in the religious context, so then people dismiss them as a superstition. You have the example, for instance, people speak about Mamadlo. In Europe, it existed in the form of what they call the mermaid. This thing also comes from Africa in the sense of you have what is called Mami Wata, which is a goddess. Right? People would also know that in the early expressions of God, the feminine was a very strong aspect. That, of course, had been sidelined with traditions that elevated the male principle or the male aspect of God, such as Christianity, Judaism, etc. So we have those little fragments which still exist, and some people still experience them, but we don't have the context to understand them, and that's perhaps why people need to understand better the various traditions that brought us forward, as opposed to only perhaps the dominant Christian one.
So let me, we're looking like when the Western culture, because there were already people living in the Caribbean. Okay,
you had the
Amerindians.
Yes.
When the Western culture came up to the Caribbean, they brought in their own beliefs, and they instilled in us. Because if you watch it during slavery, the slaves were not allowed to practice their religion. That's why they had separate rooms for the men and the women.
Well, and they made it criminal.
They made it criminal
to practice it.
But the slaves would still have some things hiding somewhere where they would practice their religion.
And people's experience on that level, you really cannot stamp it out entirely.
Because with the older, with the younger slaves, this was transgressed inside them when they started growing, because these slaves now learn how to read and learn how to express their language. Because there was this remember there was this language barrier, Africa and Europe, where the Africans would speak something different to the Europeans, and the Europeans would try to instill that you speak my language, you speak yes, you speak no, because that's where Calypso religion came from too, why they sing in their religious worship through their words. So because there's some places we still practice it, like for instance in Haiti, voodoo is the number one religion, and they're trying to say it's Christianity.
Well, both of them exist side by side, because the people of the voodoo tradition understand that Christianity is simply another interpretation of the spiritual universe.
They seem to understand it better than anyone in the Caribbean, in terms of not because it is their religion, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those people who practice Buddhism in Haiti, they are more susceptible to other types of religion. They respect other types of religion more than Christians would respect their religions.
Actually, most religions are more tolerant than Christianity happened to be when it was used as a colonial force. Because again, you will look at the Vodou tradition, and because here they were not able to maintain all of the various symbols. They said, okay, this principle represents, Papa Legbal represents the doorway between the spiritual and the material universe. So you have this, the priest come and they give you this symbol with Peter holding the key. So they say, oh, that's a good symbol that we can use to represent that deity. And he also has the rooster in the background, which is a sacred animal to Legba. So they understood that. So they said, okay, we have voodoo, but we can still attend the Catholic Church because we understand what is behind this symbol.
But in the other sense, there's also the superstition about, you see, because they stamp it and make it look evil. Whereas, what I was watching, look at this, you fall sick, and you go to all the conventional Western doctors, and the people in St. Lucia and some of the Caribbean islands tend to go to the voodoo doctor after.
But when we say people in St. Lucia, I think everyone, they do that. We do that, but I think we do that because depending on our beliefs and how we were brought up, if we were brought up in a Western society, we're going to see our doctors and our nurses and so on and so forth.
If we have the roots, and
you go to a different religion, and some religions say you mustn't go to a doctor, or you must let things heal naturally.
We need to clarify certain things too. When we talk about, we say the voodoo doctor, etc., these are terminologies that the colonial people use because they really didn't understand that there's actually
and they made them seem bad. Yes,
they didn't understand there's an actual religion that we're talking about. However, in addition to that, in people's normal lifestyle, of course, you would have to have a healer, and the use of herbal medicine is not something unique to Africa. Europe was also very, very rich in herbal medicine, and the pharmaceutical industry is a fairly recent one, you know? So when we understand that, it's not a voodoo doctor, it's that people who understand that herbs can be used for healing, and that perhaps even spiritual powers can be used for healing. Some of them may also believe in the voodoo laws. Some of them may believe in Christianity. But these things are not the same. The religion and the healing thing, although both of them are linked, they're not exactly the same thing.
I mean, what's the bottom line here? It appears that the bottom line is, if you don't understand something, you're automatically going to think it's bad, especially if the word doesn't sound like a word that you're used to. Voodoo doesn't sound like an English word.
I don't necessarily agree that it's something you don't understand. There's a way to tolerate something that is different from yours, but we must understand that
that's the intelligent way of thinking.
Well,
no disrespect, but not everyone thinks in that intelligent manner.
Well, our history is that you had a colonial situation where one group of people were saying, "Hey, we are going to dominate this society." So in a context like that, where you are using the religion itself to do so, then that religion will be intolerant.
Like, what's his name? Jim Jones in Guyana.
People went to Guyana.
I don't know if Jim Jones was trying to colonize Guyana. I don't think that's
no. He was trying to rule a set of people.
He came. He asked Jim Jones, Jim Jones came. He asked for a piece of land, and he went to that with his people. He didn't even invite any Guyanese people.
In the US, he could not have done it.
I'm talking about the principle, not the actual what he did, but the principle.
I wouldn't compare him to the colonial.
No, not the colonial, but the belief, the way that you can strongly put something in someone's head.
Yeah, but I don't even know to what extent Jim Jones may have been intolerant to another tradition.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll give you a little story that took place in Africa, where this Scottish missionary went and it was King Lobengwela. He said he came and he was trying to convert him. So King Lobengwela said to him, "I have my God, you have yours. Why do you want to give me yours?" That's a different attitude then. That you can have yours, you interpret God how you want based on your culture. I have mine. I don't have a problem with you practicing based on your culture, except if you want to impose it on me. And that is a very integral part of our experience here in the Caribbean and elsewhere. And it really cannot be separated from that discussion of superstition, religion, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but the other thing I find is, like, for instance, I watch some religions and they want to enforce it on you. Instead of letting you grew up in a religion and you decide, okay, that's where I'm staying, but they come and tell you, mine is right. And I find these things kind of like, they tell you, that's evil. They try to look at your religion as being evil, while accepting you have your beliefs. Because a lot of these myths, the Western culture have inculcated in us to tell us, Nkrumah is round, so you watch Nkrumah in a different light. You watch Dolor in and then that I find we should be open-minded to a lot of these things. And research have helped me to understand a lot of what's happening. Because, for instance, a lot of these myths, the Loch Ness monster, all these things, and they're trying to make you look like this evil.
People have seen the Loch Ness monster, you know.
A lot of history has been done, and for the sizes they're looking at, that animal cannot survive in the loch. There's not enough food in the loch
but
for it to
you
survive.
as the scientists will tell you, you know, one thing why it couldn't, and you know, why it could.
Because
you know?
a lot of the superstitious belief and the myths, because the Bermuda Triangle is one. You know, a lot. But now in modern technology, people avoid the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to
I have to say, if I've got to go to that flight path, I look there.
I'm trying to find out why they cannot send a probe there. The probes they use in Afghanistan, so we can overcome that myth. You know, send a probe for the Bermuda Triangle, and let's find out if it's true or not. There are a lot of things that can be done, because look at Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a mythical story. Up to now, they're trying to make ways to prove to you Robin Hood was real. You see, so a lot of these things, but we in our culture too. One myth I had is that Sir John Compton never used to lock his car. And growing up I said, so eventually I say I mustered the courage and I opened the door of the car. And ironically he was coming on the steps at the same time. And he said, Mr. LaForce, I know what you're doing. Yes, it's never locked. You know but we have to kind of be open-minded and learn, because before you would never leave your clothes outside at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will tell you, don't leave your clothes outside at night. Remember that? They'll tell you to leave your clothes outside, but now people do it.
Well, I mean, we've come away a bit from
because
what we
have grown.
Originally started talking about in terms of our religion and so on and so forth. But I just want to go back a little to religion before we go to the break. Nkrumah, maybe you can answer this one for me. Why is it that certain religions or certain superstitions are linked to certain religions and they always come across as bad?
I think it's a situation, it's an issue of power. It's an issue of power and who gets to define what is good and what is bad. It has happened before, but in our present context, it happened between the European and the African traditions, and even to some extent the Indian traditions as well, and the Amerindian. But even in the past, that actually gave shape to some of those dominant religions was the marginalizing of the female presence in God. So there's no goddess, or whatever may have been a goddess now becomes a minor saint or something of the sort. So that's why again it's important to understand the history, because many of the religions which dominate now are very young religions, and religions that actually derive from earlier forms, right? So what's evil or not is really a matter of perspective and who has the power to define.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that answer. This is a Dolor Factor Live on DBS, of course. You've got 10 minutes to answer the questions to win tonight. Remember, you can find the questions on dolorfactorlive.com to win some Ferentz ice cream. Name 2 of the ice creams mentioned tonight and which company produces the ice cream. To learn salsa, bachata, merengue and cha-cha from Expose St. Lucia Latin Dance Studio, name the Rodney Bay studio where Expose St. Lucia holds its classes. If you'd like a token of appreciation from DFL, name 3 DFL sponsors. 1 must be a car rental company. When we come back, maybe you should start thinking about some of the experiences that you've had, your myths, your superstitions, and what you think are just pure scare tactics. We'll be right back.